Right now, though, we turn to our top story for you. Chilling, newly released crime scene photos and surveillance footage revealing the aftermath of the Idaho student murders. Moscow police releasing more than 200 photographs showing the inside of the King Road home where Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were killed. Many of those pictures look like a beautiful house a day after maybe a college party, right? You know, there's some empty Solo cups, some empty beer bottles, some of these things showing that the life these college students were living, right? Other photos, though, are terrifying. They show blood spatter. Look at this sliding glass door that Kohberger used to sneak inside to do the homicides. Look at these prints on the window. This is just chilling, those two handprints on the exterior window right after the murders. Moscow police also released a neighbor's surveillance footage from a camera where you can see Killer Kohberger. That's his white Hyundai Elantra driving back and forth from the house. This is just before the murders. He was surveilling the property. So what do these newly released items of evidence tell us about how these murders happen? Let's bring in our experts and talk about it. Criminology expert, author, and professor Dr. Debbie Goodman is with us. So is former solicitor, former SLED agent, and attorney now in the private sector and lawmaker in the state of South Carolina, Tommy Pope. Great to see you both this morning. Dr. Debbie, would you start us off? Tell us what you were thinking about the story, the picture that these items paint as you were reviewing the new pieces of evidence released.
Good morning, Julie, Tommy. Such a barbaric, brutal crime scene, and although we've been following fact patterns for nearly 3 years, somehow, as we know, the pictures really tell the story. And of course, we understand the enjoyment that these college students, Ethan, Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, were living until it became this house of horror. But Julie, as you and Tommy and the Cordies know, this individual with all of the qualities and characteristics of a psychopath, grandiosity, narcissism, the rage, the revenge, the fury that we now see indicated in these photos, I would actually now, Julie, put him in a different category that I had not mentioned up until this point because I had not seen the photos. But now that we know the number of stab wounds of Kaylee at her near 34 and Xana potentially 50 wounds, I would call this individual a process-oriented killer. And we usually don't use that, Julie, when it refers to mass murderers, because the outcome for them is just the number of fatalities. That's the goal. But the process-oriented killer yields more to the serial killer who is actually enjoying the process of the killing. And I think that's unfortunately and tragically what happened here.
Oh, I think you're right, Dr. Debbie. That is some powerful analysis. We appreciate it. And it really makes me think of what we heard Olivia Goncalves say when she did an interview with News Nation. I know her impact statement was remarkable. Let's go back and listen to this clip again. She's on News Nation. She is Kaylee's big sister. Here we go.
My speech wasn't to Kaylee and Maddie, it was for them. And if Kaylee and Maddie had been here today, it was something that I feel like would have rung true to them. My body was telling me, run, get out. This is a threat. The best description I can give you is like if I had come face to face with an alien, because back behind there's no human being, there's no humanity.
There's no human being, no humanity, just exactly what you were saying, Dr. Debbie. Boy, thank you for that. Working this case, Tommy Pope, we want to talk to you about this, tapping into your years of experience as an investigator in South Carolina. Would you assess the job of law enforcement? Because I think this is something not talked about so much, but an important job that was done here in locking up this animal.
I think it begins with processing the crime scene, and probably even before that, it begins with the first arriving officers not messing up the crime scene, learning to secure it. Julie, as a side, the first thing that hit me was that sliding door. So many houses, the house I've got in Columbia where my daughter stays, has got a sliding door, and they laughed when the first thing I did was cut a doweling that you put in the door that double reinforces it. And, nobody thinks this is going to happen. But when you look at this crime scene, it brings it home. This could be your college home, your kid's home. This isn't, some fiction. And so going back to the defendant himself and the investigation, I think law enforcement did a tremendous job of processing the entire scene, because you think about every time I see the red cups and the table left out, the first thing I want to know, am my kid's going to clean it up or am I going to clean it up? But you got mess, you got, fingerprints, telling who's been there. So to discern it out and get the proper defendant is kudos to law enforcement in that regard. And what it tells me about the defendant is, as the doctor said, he is cold and calculating and methodical. And I don't think we think of it in the abstract. We don't think of it in the concrete of once he gets in that door, what he does next. And then the intimacy of the knife attacks and the number of attacks. It wasn't just, as you said, to see how many people he could kill. It was personal as to each one.
Mm-hmm. Right, Tommy. Excellent analysis. But looking at this photo, this is so troubling for so many reasons. Dr. Debbie, I want you to weigh in on this here, please. What do you think might have been going on with these prints on the outside?
Right. Well, again, and just to piggyback on what you and Tommy said about the excellent work of law enforcement, and that's why everything matters. When we have crime scene experts, local, state, and federal, they examine everything. So anybody in the field who would see this, Julie, these prints on the on the glass on the window here, it would indicate again what we've been saying all along: the planning, the purpose, the premeditation, and the intent of what this individual first wanted to do and then unfortunately did. And by carrying this out and by seeing these prints, it's almost like he left the calling card. Here I am, and come get me. And thankfully they did. Absolutely, Dr. Debbie.
Tommy Pope, that video surveillance footage released, captured from a neighbor's home of him circling around. We understand it was first obtained by News Nation, this video, and they aired it. We're acknowledging that here. Here it is. This is the video again, where this is prior to the homicides. This is around 3:30 a.m. Again, 4:20 a.m. on November 13th, 2022. Tommy, what do you think when you see this kind of surveillance being done with him in that car?
Well, Julie, goes back to what we said. It's not random. It's cold and calculated and planned. I know there was a lot of disappointment at the plea, particularly with the victims' families, that, somehow you're going to hear a why or, what brought this on. But, rarely do we ultimately hear. Victims oftentimes want to go to trial because they want to hear the truth. And I have to tell them, the defendant doesn't have to say anything. You may never hear it. And so whatever put them on his radar, he was focused. I mean, like you said, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. He's out looking, checking. It's not something he drunkenly stumbled into or angrily stumbled into. He was cold and planning, and the only better place he could be now would be on death row. But he's where he needs to be.
Yes.
He's where he needs to be.
Sure is. Tommy Pope, Dr. Debbie Goodman, excellent analysis from you both as always. Dr. Debbie, I have to let you go to your students, off to class. Thank you so much for everything this morning. We'll see you soon.